but I mean,
Because the audio wasn't turned on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on my.
and I hate saying that because I am a humanist, but I get so angry at women drivers.
I had one college girl, she
Yeah, you can see it moving.
ran my
It has
toes
a
over
little
almost, she
meter.
got so close.
Like,
And I was out for a walk one day, so I had my
you can see the-
heel water
Oh,
bottle.
okay.
I know.
And they're up with the biggest dent inside of her car.
What'd she do?
She just
kept driving?
Driving.
All right, everyone, we'll get started. Welcome to the March 27th, 2025 VAR Small Meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. I'll be your chairwoman this evening. Fellow board members present are Daryl Cobb, Laura Altman, Becky Finno, and Bill Turner. City staff present this evening are Frankie Pinto, VARS Administrator, and Rachel Four, Preservation Planner. The order of tonight's meeting will be as follows. For each application, we'll hear an introduction overview of the project from city staff for the benefit of the board and the public. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation. If you are the applicant, please approach the podium, state your name first and last for the record, and you will have 10 minutes to give your presentation. And anyone speaking on the applicant side, so owners, designers, consultants should speak during this 10-minute applicant presentation period versus during public comment. By ordinance, the board can ask questions of the applicant at any time, but by custom, we do so on the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will be followed by public comment. Any written public comment that was provided in advance of the meeting has been provided to the board for review. If anyone is speaking as a member of the public, please raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Approach the podium, state your name first and last for the record, as well as your address if you're a neighboring property owner. Public comment will be followed by city staff comments and recommendations. And once we've heard from public comment and city staff, the applicant will have a 5-minute period of time to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or in the city staff comments and recommendations. Once the applicant has had their response period, the applicant's presentation and public comment will be closed and we'll move into board discussion and a vote on each application. Results of this meeting will be posted online at the city's website. No items have been withdrawn or deferred this evening. If there are any students present, welcome. Once you've stayed for your allotted period of time, please approach Frankie over here and she can sign and provide whatever documentation that you need. Please turn off your cell phones and remember that the purview of this board is architecture only. So anything related to zoning, livability, stormwater is not within the purview of this board and should not be voiced here. All right, we'll get started. Agenda item A1 is review of the minutes from the March 13th, 2025 meeting. I make a motion to approve with the edits that I made and circulated to the board yesterday. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously. All right, agenda item B1 is 257 West Poplar Street. Rachel, if you give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Sure. 257 West Poplar Street. It's in the Wagner Terrace neighborhood, City Council District 6, Category 4, Group 2, circa 1945, and it's in the Historic Materials Demolition Purview District. They're requesting partial demolition of 2 walls of an existing addition, a section of roof trim, as well as 4 existing windows. So a little bit of context. This is the property on the site. And then we'll get into the applicant's presentation. And there should be a clicker up there if you'd like to click through the slides.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. I'm Richard Kalari, applicant for this one. So I am requesting to remove 2 of the back walls of what we think was an addition. We're not exactly sure what time. They added this kind of small 2-room area to the back of the house. We want to keep most of it, but do want to take 2 walls. So, kind of context photos, happy to go back. But here, you can see that red line. That's pretty much the area. One thing I said this morning that wasn't quite accurate, we are keeping both corners. I think I said this morning that we were only keeping the left side there. We are keeping both corners. But everything in the red pretty much is going to go. So looking at the picture I'm looking at here, the right side, that roof line is going to stay exactly the same. The left side would change slightly, but what we're proposing, everything would still stay below the existing roof line of the original home there. In terms of this area, the reason we think it is an addition, although probably done pretty close to when the house was built, is the foundation's different. They're on piers and the rest of the house is on a continuous brick foundation. The framing underneath is different lumber. And it's got just like, it's similar inside, but like things are just a little bit different in the house that would make it seem like it was probably built a little bit later. The floors go a different direction. There's thresholds at both rooms going in there. But besides that, we're keeping most of it. We just want to basically be able to take this section off. And the 4 windows, it's actually 6 windows in 4 openings. So a little clarification there, but it's those windows shown in red. This shows kind of context of what those 2 walls are. Pretty much that's it. That's all we're asking for in terms of demolition here. Plan is to do a 1-story addition off the back. I know I can't show you that. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, can you flip back to the previous slide of the photo? There, yes. So the portion of the roof which is to be removed is the left portion of the bump out in the rear, correct?
Yes, sir. If we're looking at it from the back of the house.
Okay. Is that gonna, not that it matters too much, is that gonna kind of like match the slope of the main body of the house, or?
It will, yes. So it'll probably match the slope of the main house, which is a little more gradual than the addition here. But the intention was that when the new addition comes, maybe a foot or so from where, honestly, a little less than a foot, probably 10 inches from where that corner is that we're keeping, that we could continue the roof over and not have an awkward, kind of unusable below 8-foot space there.
Not that we are considering.
Right, just for a better understanding.
Just for context
Yeah.
of why we're even touching that roof. But
Right.
the top of that roof will be exactly the same point. So it won't be any higher. It'll still be subordinate to the front. It's just the one side there.
I have one question. How far were your offsets for your demolition from the corner? Like I see the red line, but I can't really.
Not very far on either one. That one, we were basically gonna take out the window and leave the wall past the window. And the new wall would frame just inside that. So I would say 10 inches on that one. And the other one, probably pretty similar. That one was kind of, the siding was gonna be replaced on the building. So it was kind of depending on where that lines up with a piece of trim, probably 1 piece of trim on the right side and another piece on the left there.
So like 6 inches on one and 10 on the other. Is that what you're?
Yeah, something maybe a little more than 6, just a little bigger piece of trim, but probably not any siding. Something, yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking.
This is a question for either Rachel or Frankie. The siding removal is being handled at a staff level, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Good afternoon, I'm Lisa Jones with Historic Charleston Foundation. We've reviewed the application for 257 West Poplar Street and we appreciate the site visit this morning. We're not opposed to the demolition of the wall of the existing rear bump out, but we believe it's important to retain the corners of the primary mass. While the applicant mentioned that this would be the case on the site visit and just now, it's not clear on the application and we request that it be clarified to show that the demolition will not up the original mass of the house. Thank you.
Flannery Sonora Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC appreciated the opportunity to visit the site this morning. We encourage the applicant to minimize the scope of demolition at the rear to ensure the corners remain intact as indicated on site and to preserve as much of the original footprint as possible. Additionally, we would like to note that the existing siding is identified as a character defining feature in the Wagner Terrace area and character appraisal and is likely original to this house. We encourage the applicant to explore options for repair rather than replacement. Thank you.
Or anyone else speaking? It's staff. Okay, Rachel, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff had a couple observations. The rear portions of the structure appear to be later additions, and the area requested for demolition is only visible to Longborough. And then Some conditions were to keep demolition below the eave of the first rear gable and to retain the eastmost and westmost rear corners. And staff recommendation was approval with staff condition.
Thank you, Rachel. Mr. Kolari, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment and the city staff comments?
Just in regards to the corners, I think what might clarify that a little better is the floor plan showing the red line. That delineates the demolition area. I can use the little clicker like here, but I did speak incorrectly this morning when I said one corner, but my actual, I'm sorry. This one. So in this one, it shows the corners a little better. The demolition would be within the red line there. That was our intention. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
The only thing I would suggest is they define the dimensions for the corners. So we know what that is, but other than that, I don't have any problems with it.
Get our motion, we could.
do that in the
Mhm.
motion.
I think so too.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion for approval, with staff conditions. And with the clarification, you guys are comfortable that there's a minimum of 6 inches. Want to go bigger? A minimum of 6 inches offset from the corner.
From each corner. Of the east and the west.
Both corners.
Did I mention one thing before? Okay, I know that it's a staff level approval, the siding, but I would like to say that siding should be the 5/8 and not a 3/8.
The siding that they were requesting to go with, follow the replacement policy, so.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval with staff conditions and a board condition that there be a minimum of 6-inch offset from both corners. Do I have a second to Becky's motion?
I second it.
A motion to vote. Bill,
Yay in favor?
Laura,
Yay in favor.
Becky,
Yay in favor.
Daryl.
Yay in favor.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 2 is 51 Peach Street. Rachel, if you give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
51 Peachtree Street. It's in the North Central neighborhood, Council District 4, Category 4, Group 2, circa 1935, and in Historic Materials Demolition Purview District. They're requesting partial demolition of 2 12 by 14 sections of roof. Bridge and eaves will remain. So here's a brief context for the site, and then the applicant's presentation.
I'm Sky Clausen. I'm the designer on the project. This is Blake Shorter, the owner. He's gonna go through what we're gonna talk about.
This is Lindsay and Jones.
Also
We all
owner,
live there
we'll see how long we make it.
Well, I guess maybe the spiel before the sort of clicking through and seeing, let me see, what's the first thing here? Yeah, essentially, like overview of the project and then why we want to do it, but essentially our plan, we bought this house in 2021. My wife and I had a baby shortly after. It's a 1930s cottage, like pretty classic in the neighborhood. We've got a close friend that lives across the street. The interior of their house is almost the exact same as ours. And we like that about it. And we want to like preserve that feeling of it being a cottage. I think we started thinking, maybe 6 months to a year into having a kid, that maybe if there's any world where we could get a little more space out of that house or a little more of a footprint that's usable, it'd be amazing, because we really like living in the neighborhood. We've got close friends dotted all around us. Skylar, a close friend and our architect, designer, lives 1 street away on Cypress. But didn't want to add anything or attempt to add anything to the footprint of the property or yard, really, because we've got so little
of that as it is anyway, and we like spending as much time as we can outside, and I've got a garden. So the idea was to see if there was a way to expand up into the attic. Skylar came over, did some measurements. It's just high enough from the inside to where even me, being tall, could comfortably walk around within, under the ridge. But we talked about options and the idea of doing some kind of elevated shed dormer style that would give us some head height out to, further out under the ridge. Ridge? I'm learning a lot of new words. So essentially what we are asking to do is there will need to be some demolition of these two sections of roof that's set back 22 feet from the front of the house, which was important to us too, because we wanted to look at our house and it feel like the little cottage that we moved into and not like some, gigantic addition that didn't match or feel like it would. So I think we worked with Sky to try and make it to where we could create a usable space in the attic, but have it feel as minimal as possible, and balance that together. And let's see, can't really read that from here.
These just existing photos of the house and then
Oh yeah, you click Skylar.
existing photos of the house. We're requesting demolition of 2 areas on the roof, 20 feet back behind the chimney, and then 2 small spots for windows. Trying to maintain character of the neighborhood and make it as least visible from the street as possible.
And just sort of logistically, we would keep the original ridge line of the house and not extend the dormers out past the eaves. So we would keep the eaves of the house so that it kept the feeling that it currently has, and doesn't really change it from viewing it at like elevation as much as possible. I think that, and thank you for your time. It was nice to meet some of you that came out this morning. And thanks for reviewing the project.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. All right, do we have anyone speaking in the public? Okay, Rachel, go give us any comments and recommendations.
So staff had some observations. Staff has previously supported small portions of demolition at the roof, such as for dormers. The proposed maintains the chimney, is placed to the rear, and is matched on both sides. It appears to add small rectangular opening in the front and rear gable. The rear opening is not visible from the public right-of-way. And the drawing of the roof plan and the marked up aerial photo do not quite appear to match. So staff support the alteration as shown in the drawings rather than in the aerial, maintaining the ridge line. Staff recommendation is approval as.
Thank you, Rachel. Mr. Shorter or Ms. Clogston, do you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments?
No, the only thing is the aerial. I emailed Rachel about it. The aerial was slightly off, so it is intended as a drawing, not the aerial. I appreciate that note.
Thank you. All right, public comment. The applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. By the way, I appreciated your mathematics there because it gave us an idea. We've generally supported demo in this area and this percentage of the roof, so.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable amount of demolition to accommodate some second floor living. I too would rather go up than eat up my backyard. So I'm comfortable with this.
Bill, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd make a motion for final approval as submitted.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval as submitted. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Becky. I put the motion to a vote. Laura?
Yeah.
Daryl?
Yay in favor?
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yeah, in favor.
Your vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item 3, 688 King Street. Rachel, can you give us an introduction overview of the project, please?
So 688 King Street. It's in the West Side neighborhood, Council District 4. It's unrated. Circa 1891. There was a slight change, some new evidence that we'll get into came to light on the date of the building. And it's in the historic corridor district. They're requesting full demolition of building after structure fire. So context of the site, and then some Sanborn maps from 1944 that it appears on, as well as 51. And then some newspaper articles as well, further dating it back.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming today. I know everyone hates asking for demolition of an old building. I do too, but the reason we're asking is that this fire was substantial, and it just worked on a building that had a really bad fire on Cooper Street, and just working on trying to salvage whatever we could. We wound up not salvaging like a whole lot, but when the fire gets to be this hot, and you can see it burned all the way through the siding to the edges. I mean, our plan is to put this basically the same building back, but with the historical facade restored, because it's kind of been bastardized over the years. But I'm just, the application for demolition is because I don't think there's gonna be much to be saved, because the wood is so brittle by the time it's done with that hot of a fire. It's gonna be almost scraping. And I know people get their hopes up that we're gonna be able to salvage stuff, but just from experience, it's gonna be really hard. That being said, we will, almost always try to salvage original historical fabric and reuse it. I just don't know how much hope we can put in that, just looking at what's been there. On the moving forward though, we're planning on doing a lot more historical research. We're looking for photographs of the original building. There's a lot of details that you can see just actually after the fire. It removed that floor system in the front that basically exposes where the original storefront was. There's the original storefront in the back. So we're going to try to do our best to rebuild a historical building that was much like the original historically designed building in 1891. And then, and I guess, moving forward, you'll see us again and what we're going to propose. But right now, I'm here to ask for permission to demolish the building and then replace it, only because that would be way easier. And I think at the end of the day, we're gonna wind up with the same thing. But that's for you to decide.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Neil, have you looked into if zoning would allow you to put back what is there now, its current configuration? Setbacks, whatever. Because part of this for me is when you're able to preserve the building itself, it allows you to keep the form without having to, you're having new modern constraints.
Right.
Through zoning.
For, I think, limited business, parking is probably gonna be the issue, but. Good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Henry Tomorrow Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC participated in this morning's site visit and feels that there is a path forward for stabilization and preservation of this building. Contrary to original information provided in this application, this building does appear on the Sanborn maps in 1944, 1951, and 1955, which shows this building retains its original form, characterized by its distinct trapezoidal footprint. According to the PSC's research, this unique corner store building likely dates to 1891 and was originally built as the Jenkins Orphanage for Girls and later served as a grocery with apartments above for decades. We ask the board to deny this request or this demolition request and encourage the applicant to preserve the form of the building and pursue rehabilitation with in-kind replacement of damaged material and preservation of as much historic material as possible. Thank you.
Lisa James, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF reviewed the application for 688 King Street and would like to echo the concerns of the PSC. Given that the building likely dates back to the 19th century, and that it is somewhat structurally sound, especially along the front of the structure. We would like to request that the application for demolition be deferred until further rehabilitation study is complete.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Rachel, if you'll give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff had some observations. Staff originally advertised the date of construction as 1973 as per the tax records. We've since been provided additional documentation dating the building to 1891. The form of the structure remains and the rhythm of the second floor windows appears historic. The storefront and rear facade has been heavily modified. And if the structure were demolished, any replacement structure would be under BAR purview. Staff recommendation is denial of demolition.
Thank you, Rachel. Neil, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment to the city staff comments?
No, not really.
All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I've seen, in all fairness, I've seen far worse burned out buildings saved. I personally had one that burned that was in much worse shape than this, and I managed to put it back together. And so it can be done. It might be a little more expensive, but when I look at these things, I also like to take into consideration not just the physical loss of the building, but the cultural loss, its history, because the building, when the building goes, all of its history goes along with it, such as the Jenkins orphanage that was just mentioned. So like I said, having experience in this personally, you go in and you remove what you can. You encapsulate what's smoke and fire damaged, and you do a lot of sistering, and you make it work. It's possible.
In my short time on the board, we've made people preserve buildings in worse condition than this, so.
I'd like to make a motion for denial of demolition.
We have a motion on the floor for denial of demolition. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Second.
Daryl. Put the motion to a vote. Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
Laura. Bill,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair vote to the majority and the motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 4 is 56 Nassau Street. Rachel, if you'll give us an introduction to the project, please.
It's 56 Nassau Street. It's East Side Neighborhood, Council District 4, the Category 4, circa 1852 in the Old City District. They're requesting conceptual approval to remove existing aluminum siding, repair existing covered wood siding and trim, straighten the house, repair the roof, remove existing non-original fire stair and porch elements, rebuild porches and screen wall, and add a new entry stair at rear. So here's some site context for the building and the applicant's presentation.
Hello, I'm Barbara Looney. It's nice to see you all again. Thank you again for coming out this morning. And the church really appreciated y'all coming out. I'm here on behalf of Ebenezer AME Church, which is the neighbor to the south. This is a single family house, but what y'all saw this morning, we are surrounded by churches and commercial properties. So this is the house here. This is my client, which is the Ebenezer AME Church. That's St. Luke's on the other side. Across the street, that's the parking lot for Better Help in the back of the church that faces onto Meeting Street. So we are proposing to renovate this house. It's a duplex. It'll stay a duplex. We need to remove that fire stair to add a driveway. It does not have a driveway or parking right now. In addition to that, we'd like to remove the non-original porch elements. So in this, the non-original porch is the concrete floor at the first level, the iron post, and as y'all saw, it's an accoutrement of fencing, breeze block, plywood at the first level, a plywood floor at the second level, the fire stair. This does not meet code in any way, shape or form, and a non-original brick screen wall that is not even a structural element. So we'd like to remove that. The siding, is aluminum. We'd like to take that off. We have, ample spots where we know that the wood siding is below, and it's in good shape. Once we remove that aluminum siding, we will reassess and we'll document the shape of all the siding, so that that's on record. It will not be a wholesale replacement of siding. It'll be as needed. And we're also hoping to find some trim, under there as well. Because it is a duplex and it will stay a duplex, this porch is too small to put the stair in the new porch. So the stair has to go to the rear, and so that's the only element that we're adding is connecting into where the first floor, there's evidence of an existing opening. Previously on the second floor, it's a window, so we're tapping into some existing framing openings. But that will be for upstairs, that will be the only entrance into that apartment. So get to. So the existing house, existing original house settled on the south side. It's our understanding from getting into it and under it and in the attic that it probably originally settled with its porches. As you can see, it's quite the angle. When those porches were replaced by the modern porches that are there, and also when the portion of the piazzas were enclosed, they were all done plumb, so you have this weird condition. The house can be straightened and then those kind of triangle areas and things filled in. It gets a little complicated, a little technical, but it needs substantial work at that foundation line there, and in that area under the enclosed porch. Again, this is the existing. What we're definitively taking off is the non-original porch elements. Some of the side lights were filled in. There's some grills over things that you saw that this morning. So they're getting redone. The foundation's getting redone at that point, and then there'll be the new facade, or the new piazza on that facade. And then at the rear, we're proposing adding the stair. Tucked in, the stairs sits off the back of the house because that's an egress to those bedrooms. So tucked in behind there is the mechanical units, the compressors. So there, we are proposing a louver or a lattice. It will be a field-built lattice. It's specified so that it will in no way, shape, or form be remade lattice. And that's based upon some historic concepts of what that lattice was, that it's not what I refer to as Lowe's lattice. To give it some screening, so it's still light into that bedroom downstairs, and to also separate those two entrances, the downstairs back door entrance and the upstairs main entrance, front entrance to the house, to that apartment. And then there's some minor work. This foundation, we think we're actually going to be able to keep it, and it's going to almost serve as the hinge point when that house gets kind of tilted back up. But as you can see, that's the stair going up. There's some lattice kind of screening from the driveway, that those units. That's going to be tucked in behind the corner of that. As you saw, it's very open on this side to St. Luke's. So I think that's all I had. Unless y'all have questions for me?
I have one. Actually, first of all, thank you for a nice complete submittal. And this question about the driveway, you talked about the easement so the driveway could encroach into the next property over. With that next property being a parking lot, will there be some sort of a physical barrier or will that driveway just bleed into that parking lot?
So that's how long I've been working on it, and when I talked to Lee and Penny about it, Lee's interpretation, where the commercial parking lot buffer to a residential was not necessarily needed, and I don't know the reasoning behind that. We are planning to add a fence there, and that part of that is to provide some kind of separation. The church has a parking lot on the other side of the sanctuary and it also owns homes that face onto Amherst. And they actually put the driveway of one of those homes became an easement for their parking lot. And they've had a lot of trouble with the kind of blending between residents and people coming to the church. Especially during the week for like a funeral where you might not know that that's not your parking kind of thing. So they have voiced very much, they want to keep it delineated between what's the house and what's the church parking. We just haven't finalized that yet, so that's not in the application, but it was my understanding it's not a requirement for the zoning portion of it. Obviously, we'll have to revisit that, but that didn't come up when we did have to go through BZA to establish or keep the 2 units on the property.
Yeah, I think that a fence or something needs to be there just for a visual break.
Yeah.
It will just look much nicer.
And the way, from what I remember of it, Bill, when I was reading that ordinance about this separation between the commercial and the private, it had to be like a full privacy fence. And in the discussions that the church would like, especially when it's along where the piazzas are, the church would rather have like a half height, a short picket fence.
Yeah.
Kind of cute. So there's some discussion, but we just haven't finalized that detail, but that's in the plan.
Thank you.
Make it fit shorter than the one that's turned upside down.
Yes. I mean, you can
It's like
the second part of that is that easement is in the process of being filed. And so because it's not official yet, I didn't know if we could submit to an approval for a fence that's not on
Your property.
their property. It's still their property, but
Yeah.
like, would that be a separate thing?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Preservation Society of Charleston. We appreciate the applicants reaching out to the PSC to discuss this project and the opportunity to meet the project team on site this morning. We are excited to see this substantial rehabilitation project progress to serve the members of the East Side community. As the project moves forward, we encourage continued study of the proposed lattice screening in favor of a more traditional option, given the high degree of visibility of the rear stairs from both sides. With that, we are happy to offer our support. Thank you.
Jones Historic Charleston Foundation. We've reviewed the application for 56 Nassau Street, and we appreciate the applicant's time and effort with regard to the project and reaching out to us. We support the changes to the property and believe the applicant is making every effort to restore the historic character of the building. Thanks.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Rachel, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So some staff observations, the proposal cleans up existing alterations, and the proposed piazza screen is more appropriate than the existing brick screen. The only staff condition for approval was the piazza hood to be standing seam hand crimped. And then the staff recommendation is conceptual approval with preliminary and final review by staff and permit document.
Thank you, Rachel. Ms. Lindy, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment and staff comments? All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. I'm really glad to see they're doing this.
Pretty happy with it. I would just make one suggestion, and that's with your piazza screen hood, with only having the steel available as to use a standing seam. When you get down towards the ground level, closer, it looks much nicer if you just maybe do it in copper because it's more malleable and you get you can get shorter seams and you know, a steel roof, it's different when it's up high. You don't notice it so much since we no longer have turn metal, so yeah, maybe it's not much roof to deal with. It'll just look much nicer. You can even paint it if you wanted to.
Anybody have a motion? Becky?
Um, Make a motion for approval. For conceptual approval with preliminary and final to staff. I would,
About staff
with the
condition?
condition of looking at the material, I think they can work with staff on the appropriate material for the hood at the piazza screen.
You have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with preliminary and final review by staff. For the board condition, the applicant is to work with staff on an appropriate material for the piazza screen hood. Do I have a second to Becky's motion?
I'll second.
Bill, the motion to a vote. Laura? Yay in favor. Daryl?
You in favor?
Becky?
Yay, in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 5, 1 Rosemont Street. Rachel, if you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
1 Rosemont Street, it's in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood, Council District 6. It's unrated, circa 1890 in the Old City District, and they are requesting conceptual approval for renovation, restoration to existing cottages. Some context of the 2 cottages on the site, and then the applicant's presentation.
I'm Ashley Jennings, architect on the project, and my client is Colin Colbert. These buildings are, you probably saw them in the paper recently. The Post Courier did an article on Freedman's cottages, and these are 2 of the ones that they pictured in the article of desperate need of attention. And we've gone to the BZA to get approval to reuse the structures. They're originally single-family residences, to use them in small office for now. The intent is not to expand them at all, but renovate them in situ and try to restore as much as possible and replace in kind what can't be restored. As you can see in our package, one thing that's really confusing in our package, Unit B is the front structure and Unit A is the back structure on the lot. But Unit B lost its porch recently, and so there is some work that has to be done to repair that porch and replace it. The only other changes we're proposing to make, this is the Sanborn maps basically show the structures the same way throughout. The same boards that actually show those structures. And you can see on the site plan, there's a proposal for some parking on the site for the use. As here are the previous and proposed plans. This is for Unit A, which is the back structure. And the intent here is to reuse as much of even the existing porch as possible. The framing may be able to be salvaged, but the decking won't be able to. But the intent is to return the stairs on the porch to where they are right now. The only other modification to the building is to remove the rear door and replace it with a window. But the rest of the project is the intent is to restore the structure. And you can see that here. We did call out a 5E metal roof, but Colin is definitely willing to use a true standing seam galvan painted roof. So that's the Unit A, which is the back one. Oh, here's Unit B. Unit B, we have to rebuild the porch, and the intent is to rebuild it as similarly to the original porch as we can determine it was. And to relocate the stair to the back, and the reason for that is, go back to the site plan. You can see that putting a stair out off of that side of the porch might preclude you from getting safely onto the property. The neighbors are concerned about traffic through that little tiny street. So we were proposing to relocate that one stair element to the back of the piazza and steps side. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Have you gotten to the point yet of figuring out like site materials, driveway materials?
No, we haven't, no.
I think when you were here before, the last time for the demolition, you talked about some sort of a physical connection to the Spring Street property.
I don't think I was here for the demolition, but yes, there is, if I go back to the site plan, this property line right here connects to another parcel that's very large that goes all the way to Spring Street. And there is some intent to develop that parcel, but that's not going to be part of this proposal now. I mean, the intent here is to get these buildings stabilized as quickly as possible. And I know that he's kind of put this parcel on hold for a little while, so.
I was just curious.
Actually, the tree that looks like it's right by, I think, unit B at that corner right as it comes in, is that dead? Is it still living? Is it staying?
It is, I think it's dead, and I know that Colin will reach out to Eric Schultz to ask him if he can remove the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
That looks like a big problem.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking?
Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. And we have reviewed the application for One Rosemont, and we appreciate that these important historic buildings are being restored. We are in support of this application and look forward to seeing the cottages activated. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Celebration Society of Charleston. PIC appreciates the applicant reaching out to us regarding this project. We are pleased to see this proposal moving forward after our opposition to the demolition of these historic freedmen's cottages. We are happy to support this project and ask the board to require close coordination with staff to determine the scope of repair versus replacement to ensure the retention of as much historic material as possible during the rehabilitation. In particular, it is unclear whether the roof of the rear unit A might be in salvageable condition based on the documentation provided, and we request clarification as this project moves forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay. Rachel, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff observations, the requested demolition previously and were denied. Existing metal roofs are being removed and proposed stairs for unit A are overly wide. Staff conditions for approval, stairs for unit A should be narrowed to the distance between the doors. And staff recommendation is conceptual approval with staff and board conditions and preliminary final review by staff.
Thank you, Rachel. Ashley, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the comments?
I will respond to the Preservation Society's comments. The intent, yes, is to work with the city to determine what should and shouldn't be removed. They're not far enough along in the process yet to be able to. They've started to remove some of the stuff that was collected inside the building, but not all of it's removed. So I think the intent is to salvage as much as possible. And if there's an opportunity to save one of the metal roofs, we surely will look at that. And I don't have a problem making the stairs on unit A narrow.
Thank you. All right, public comment and the applicant presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and vote.
For real, but he's gonna do something with these. I think I was pretty vocal when it came to the demolition. These are so rare that you find these in such a pure form, and then they haven't been screwed up over time. And so I think these two little buildings will be real jewels. I agree with staff's comment about the steps, but other than that, I think the project's wonderful.
I agree.
I have actually a question for staff. On a project like this, are you, for the preliminary and final, are you requesting a graphic on what's staying and what's being preserved?
Yes, ma'am. We also will do a site visit with the applicant to discuss things on site if that would be helpful to them.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. Conceptual approval with adoption of staff conditions with preliminary and final review by staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff conditions and preliminary and final review by staff. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
A second.
Becky, the motion to a vote. Laura?
Yay in favor.
Daryl?
You in favor?
Bill?
Yay in favor?
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, agenda item 6, 128 Cannon Street. Rachel, if you give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
128 Cannon Street. It's in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood, Council District 6, Category 4, circa 1840 in the Old City District. They're requesting conceptual approval for renovations to existing single house and some context for the building on this.
I'm Ashley Jennings, the architect on the project, and my client, Harrison Malpass, can't be here tonight because he's at a christening. This you have seen previously, and I think that the direction I got from the board was to look at the enclosure that we were proposing for this porch that happens in the center portion of the building to reflect what the evolution of the structure. And so the first thing we did, here's some Sanborn maps showing that the building hasn't really changed over the last, since 1944. What we did, Harrison was able to remove the interior finishes. That this building had been, all the historic materials have been removed. It was sheetrocked inside. He was able to remove that. And what we found is that I was absolutely wrong about the building when I told y'all at the last meeting. And specifically, what I told you was I thought that this porch that wrapped resulted or came to an L, what you call an L, which is a smaller portion on the back of the building. But you can see here in this photograph, there's a complete gable with a center window here. And there's no evidence that there was an L on the building. And all of the framing is very old. We did find, Kevin Everly sent me an article that he had written about the building that said that this structure, this element in the back, which we're going to call the secondary structure, was actually there in the late 1800s, and it was a one-story element. And so what we think happened was that this was the primary structure you can see in this top visual here. The primary structure probably had a porch that did not wrap the back. This secondary structure was a one-story structure, then was added on to create 2 stories. And then this infill structure occurred. They're all fairly old. So, and then at some point, they started to modify this porch to wrap, and then they infilled a portion of this porch on the center infill element. And so we're back with the same proposal that we had before, but with better information about the evolution of the building. So, and you can see that here. So if you look at this structure, what we think happened here, you have columns here, which you can see the evidence of. There's one column still there. We don't think it was original. But the idea is that we're creating that same rhythm. You have 2 of the columns where we've infilled with glass, and then you can see where the piazza returns. That section is different, and it's different because that's where the piazza returns. So this is just a site plan. I don't know if this helps much. And I added some red lines here so that you could see the different sections of the building. Once again, primary structure, secondary structure, and infill structure. This is the area shaded that we're proposing for modification. And then you can see down below where that is evidenced here. Here. And so the idea is to match the rhythm of the columns that we think were probably there at one point and accept this turn porch here with a solid wall. And this is the second floor. Once again, primary structure, secondary structure, infill structure, and the idea that this was already modified and partially enclosed, and the idea is to complete enclosure. And here you can see, once again, I redlined it so we could see the evolution of the structure. And this is what that would look like if you're looking at the west elevation. The intent with the rest of the structure is just to restore as much as we can. And that's just a view from the street. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
The last time you were here, was this hyphen like this or was that the same?
Yes.
This is exactly the same. I think.
So I guess
It's the same submittal.
procedurally, we gave conceptual approval last time with
The
just
back
that,
For
structure.
the back building.
not, I think we also gave conceptual to this with the board condition.
But we did not. That's what.
That was what our results said.
We did give conceptual approval with the only board condition being to restudy the enclosure of the rear porch. So if this is the same application, we're either on, and nothing has changed since the last submittal, right?
No, except for the research
Okay.
to understand the evolution of the building.
Ask a question about the.
You can
I
ask.
wasn't here the last time, so I'm trying to follow. This portion that turns right here, are you saying that was a modification somewhere along the way?
Yes.
That originally the porch ended here, maybe the spacing was different on the
Yes.
columns?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm concluding that, Laura, is because we were looking for, and on the interior, the evidence of what would have been that smaller one-room structure on the back of the building. And you don't see that because there's a clear line here where the new structure, the infill structure started. And then once again, if you look at this gable, this is a horrible picture, by the way, sorry. But if you look at this gable, there's no scar or anything for any of that one room element that porch would have got into to make us think that porch wrapped originally on the back of the structure.
Actually, the window that you said, this one here, when you're talking about, can you point that out on the diagram? It's,
No, I can't, but it would have been, because I didn't show it, but it would have been right there,
okay,
right in the center of that gable.
which makes sense.
Right.
Because quite frequently you have one there above a rear L. So, yeah, I'm a little confused on this one. It's a little bit of a mystery. Because my gut is that, that was a rear L.
Me too.
Yeah.
But there's not even any scarring on that rear wall to show that there would have been there was a roof there, a smaller gable. And like I said, you can see that cross member here. That's the back. That's that same spot right here. So, and there's no evidence. You can see a clear line here. There's no evidence that room was there. So.
Oh, we're still in question. I think,
Now,
I think my question for the board is better for the board discussion. And we're still, does anybody have any questions for Ashley now?
just for clarification, according to Kevin, he thought that what I would describe as a kitchen house was originally a one-story structure and predates the main house. Is Is that what he thought?
Well, we don't know the date of the main house other than what in his research, what he found, because we don't have a Sanborn map
Okay.
that completes that. But yes, that kitchen house wouldn't have predated the front structure, but it would have been back there as a one-story element.
Okay.
That his article wasn't really clear on the dates,
Mhm.
but it just referred to that back structure being a one-story structure at one point.
Now, the one-story structure, it kind of, if you're looking at it, it kind of has a little bit of a wing to the right.
Yes.
Do you think that's part of that original one-story structure, or maybe it came later as a hyphen?
That's a good question, but if you look once again, I'm gonna go back to my photograph. If you look, I don't have a really good close up the back, because I was trying to show you where the, you can see there, this is the cross bracing, right, for that back structure. So I think if I were to guess that element, if that porch either at one point, see, there's a wall, there's an element in the plan here at this point, not here.
So you think it was part of the original?
It might have been either it was part of it or it was added, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence in the framing.
Well, I'll admit I did a little bit trespassing.
You did?
Yeah, I did. And to me, that framing right in that short area there, did look newer to me. Like
Okay.
Maybe that was the later infill.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna get shot one day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking? Okay, Rachel, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff just had an observation. Previous board condition does not appear to have been addressed. So that was to restudy the enclosure of the rear porch in relation to providing visual separation. The staff recommendation is deferral for board conditions.
Thank you. Rachel, actually, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff comments?
Yes, I think what we're asking for you to do is to reconsider our scheme based on the information we're bringing to you tonight. Or if not, give us some feedback as to how you would like to see that enclosure a little, or give us a little bit more feedback. I mean, after I looked at it, I thought we probably did a really good job of creating evidence of the way that evolved, but I'll let you decide that.
Thank you. All right, public comment on the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. And I think that gets to my question for the board based on the new information that actually presented. Is that board condition now, or would we, I guess, revoke that board condition? And if the answer is yes, I think we're looking at a, preliminary stage approval.
So since I wasn't here before, I kind of have an advantage in a good way for what Ashley's asking of, like, look at this with fresh eyes based on the current evidence. When I first reviewed it, just, in preparation for the meeting, my thought was, which may be similar to what your discussion was previously, was that infill wall, instead of bumping out a foot, needed to go inward a foot to maintain that original corner. In line with where, or behind where the current porch is and the columns are. From what I could tell, so maybe that comment is still valid then? That it's still, but I don't know the background of the comment as much.
It was a similar concern about losing the form or the essence of front building infill and then back building. And you're absolutely right that on the first floor, you can still see the definition of the corner of the back building. So yeah, there was concern about that wall pulled forward as opposed to pulled back to define that corner. That was very similar.
Yeah, I never, I'm always uncomfortable with porch infills, and setting precedent because they seem to be a real hot button porch infills. So we're always pretty strongly opposed to them, but, so I always have to look for a way to hang my hat on to justify them. You know, I don't know that the porch is original or not. I mean, it seems like this thing evolved so many times. But I'm thinking if we allow the porch infill, I do think that then what I call the wing of the what I would call the kitchen house, I think that does need to be pushed in some. I think you were talking about that.
Middle, like, can we flip back to the
Yeah,
floor
the
plan, the
plan.
first floor?
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah, I guess what I'm talking about is
Go back one more.
that portion there.
Yeah, like right here, the wall would be in there just behind where those columns are. It would jog inward just a smidge.
Right.
Even really right here.
That's the corner.
Yeah. And you lose it on there.
See, I think this was the end of this original building, so I think it makes sense to jog it over there.
Yes.
The way that
yes.
it is in the existing,
Mhm.
That was mine.
I mean, the way it is in the existing.
Yeah, and then you reintroduce that corner board, which was probably there originally. Maybe the siding profile changes for that little wing portion.
Like front and back and infill needs to be maintained.
I'm not so opposed to the, I don't know, what do you guys think about the porch infill itself? Yeah, the idea of infilling the porch.
I don't mind it, but I think we need to see, because even when I was on the 1940 maps, it shows a porch there. I would love to see that still somehow evident in the evolution. I don't mind it being infilled, but that it gives that reference.
It's infill though, you're breaking in front of that back corner. Which is what Ashley's done.
If you go right behind the columns here, it's gonna be pretty close to maintaining it, but,
You mean maintain the definition
yeah,
of what used to be there.
yeah, and
The story.
yeah, and if you can infill it so that it maintains the look of a porch.
See, I think it's more important to provide a break between what would have been the original form of the rear building.
And now,
This area here, so that this continues to read as a service building in the back.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking of great business. 6 inches or so. And enough to reintroduce that original, what would have probably had an original corner for it.
So it sounds like the comment is still valid and but Ashley wants some, we asked her originally to restudy it to provide a visual separation. So I think Ashley's now asking for a little bit more guidance on what you want to see.
we're asking, we need to give direction on based on existing. Are we saying, you know, there can be definition here, we want to leave? I think that's where we have to give some direction, or like Laura said, you can infill this behind the columns, but then you maybe really, you may not get that definition that you're talking about.
I think to me, what she's showing works if you then you know, do a little bit of hyphen in there.
Oh, you could have left this and then just created
Yes.
definition right,
Yeah.
just right in that
And
area.
that area there.
Yeah. Oh, well, they could. That would be a kind of expressing the porch, like taking.
And I'm not talking about much, it wouldn't need to be much.
Needs to be. Yeah, I see.
So I think what we would do now, since the comment is still valid, we did give conceptual approval last time. This is the same plan. I think this would be a deferral. And once that comes back with, you know, the applicant has restudied it, potentially incorporated your idea of bumping that in a little, it would come back for preliminary or final.
Are we kind of in agreement what we think they need to do, or?
Well, that was your idea and they said, cool, but.
I'm in agreement with that, actually. I mean, that accomplishes.
What do y'all think?
I think that gives everybody what they want
I think so.
for the most.
I would like to mention a couple of other things. I would, Ashley yeah, your application mentioned something about the porch balusters. Those are clearly not original. They look like Lowe's specials.
Right.
Is the intent to maybe go back and replace them with something that would have been there and maybe at its historic height or something, or
Yes.
you wanted to reuse those things?
No, that was a suggestion at the last meeting
Okay.
and we. Gladly.
The other concern I had is that kitchen house, I keep calling it a kitchen house, it's crying out for those first floor windows to be put back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
On balance. Any other comments?
Um, that's it.
Is everyone in agreement with that path forward and want to float a motion? And it may be agreeing with staff recommendation. But it's actually more of a deferral for. to
Well,
incorporate
Ashley,
those
do you
questions.
kind of understand what we're getting at?
Yes.
Like if we said a deferral based on board discussion, you would know.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion for deferral based upon board discussion.
We have a motion on the floor for deferral, for applicant to, address board discussion. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second it.
Daryl, put the motion to a vote. Becky,
Yay in favor.
Laura,
Yay, in favor.
Bill,
Yay in favor.
Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 780 Alexander Street. Rachel, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
80 Alexander Street. It's in the Garden District neighborhood, Council District 4. It's a Category 2, Circuit 1805 in the Old and Historic District. They're requesting conceptual approval to install 3 Bahama shutters at the rear of the home. So some context of the home on the site and the applicant's presentation.
Hi, how are you? This is the Dewey's Gadsden House. It's the site of Liberty Tree and Alexander Mazik's pasture. And so what we're requesting is, well, part of the request to replace the front shutters with something matching the door. I think these have kind of been conceptually approved. We're talking about the Bahama shutters. So this is a picture from the hotel, of the side of the house, those shutters on the house at all. There are pentholes showing that there were shutters in the past. This is kind of my diagram, again, picture from the adjacent hotel showing where standard shutters would be applied and then where the request for Bahama shutters is, and it's in the back section, which is was not part of the original house, maybe a kitchen house. I'm not sure. There were several structures back there at one time. You can't see these from the street anyway, because there's about an 8-foot lip. And I've taken some street pictures from Alexander. From my research, not a whole lot on Bahama shutters. They were around in the colonial times, started obviously in the Caribbean and then were adopted in the South for people who wanted to block sunlight from the windows, but still be able to maintain a view. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking? Okay, Rachel, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff just had observations. This is an appeal of staff denial. Staff cannot approve alterations to category 2 structures. BAR typically does not approve Bahama shutters, and other shutters were approved by staff as the repair. The other shutters he was talking about previously.
Thank you, Rachel. Mr. Ford, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff comments?
I wanted to clarify the appeal of staff denial. I think it was appeal of staff approval, maybe.
Staff can't approve an alteration, so we can approve the other shutters. But since we didn't have evidence of Bahama shutters, essentially we have to deny that.
Okay, so it was denied. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
It's more of a, we don't have the authority to approve it.
Got it.
All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. This was a new one. I don't think I've ever dealt with Bahama shutters.
Yeah, I mean, you can see them through the hotel parking lot. You can also see them from East Bay Street as well. This house is pretty exposed. I can understand the desire for privacy. But Bahama shutters, they would have never been used on a house like this. I do have a suggestion though that might get done what they want to get done. And oftentimes on the north and east sides of single houses, and you probably won't know what I'm getting at, you would have a pair of fixed shutters on the bottom covering the bottom sash that would sit proud of the frame. They would usually maybe set up that far. And that was a fairly common occurrence for privacy there on northern and eastern sides of houses. I mean, that would be fine with something like that.
Seems like a nice compromise.
Is that something that could be approved at staff?
Like a pair of louvered shutters.
It's like a pair of louvered shutters that are molded.
They look like they're glazed.
Just the bottom half.
Bottom sash, the top sash is left exposed, which you need your privacy the bottom half, unless you're a very tall person.
This may be a question for staff, but could you all approve that at staff level?
Only with evidence that it used to be there. There were the pentholes on the other windows, so we knew there were shutters.
So they have to come back to the board if you wanted to do your suggestion.
No, what not? I mean, we can.
You can make it, you can approve them
Right, yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
and give us the authority to do it in.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
It's easier.
Do you understand what I'm talking about? I'm sure you've seen this.
Mr. Ford, is that attractive to you?
I'm sorry, it's basically the same shutter, except it's in half and then it covers the bottom shaft.
Yeah, it doesn't cant out like a Bahama shutter.
Right.
It's vertical. It's parallel to the window itself, but it will sit proud of the window. They would generally about maybe 4 inches or so out. It's a very, if you ride around town, I'm sure you'll see some of them. They're always on the blank side of the house, usually on the stair landing window. Yeah, single house, yeah.
Bill, do you want to craft a motion?
Let's see, I don't know how to exactly put that.
Well, you could, maybe a denial of the Bahama shutters, but approval of whatever you call those.
Okay,
Or an approval per board suggestion.
okay, we'll do that, okay. I will make a motion for the denial of the use of the Bahama shutters. With approval of the board's direction on the use of a fixed shutter on the lower sash of the windows. Does that? Frankie understands what it is.
Yes, sir. I will work with the applicant.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor for denial of use of the Bahama shutters, but approval of the board's direction on the use of a fixed shutter on the lower shaft of the windows. Do I have a second?
Sash.
Yep. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Second.
Motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yay in favor?
Laura, Bill,
Yay in favor.
Becky.
Yay in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 8, 128 Tradd Street. Rachel, if you'll give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Yes, 120 Tradd Street. It's in the Charlestown neighborhood, Council District 8, Category 2, circa 1765 in the Old and Historic District. They're requesting conceptual approval for restoration and renovation, including the removal and reconstruction of a 1954 bathroom addition, removal of metal sheathing, enclosure of a ground level porch, restoration of 19th century piazza access with the removal and relocation of non-historic windows, and the addition of French doors and miscellaneous window and door changes to the north elevation. So some context of the building. Yeah, and presentation.
Good evening, board and staff. I'm Ross Ritchie with Loyal Architects, here on behalf of my clients Richard and Jessica Morris, the new owners and stewards of 128 Tradd Street. Property has a rich history. The house dates back to, it said 1765, and the structure itself is comprised of a fabric, a building fabric of multiple building campaigns that have altered the form and style of the structure through time. We dove headlong into this history, and it has guided much of our design. And from that, we are proposing, we think, a thoughtful and sympathetic alterations that will help reveal and tell the story of the evolution of the structure with a bit more clarity. The total scope of work we are presenting as many aspects of restoration and renovation, along with several easements that we have dealt with. Property as an open space garden easement with HCF, and the house has a interior easement of several sections and a exterior easement with PSC. And we have gained approval with each of those, and they've said they support our VAR application. We also have the S1 and S2 with SHPO has been approved so far, and additionally, we have approval from the previous owners, the Parkers, the ones who donated those easements, and they currently reside up the street. The owners have spoken with numerous neighbors, the Walkers and Wendy, the most adjacent neighbors, and have gotten many compliments and no objections to the design. One of the major projects within the scope of the major restoration is the major restoration of the interior easement rooms, and the grand staircase with its intricate paneling, mantles, over mantles, all of which require careful and thorough restoration, all to be tagged and cataloged, restored, and reinstalled. Along with this endeavor, we have a major mold remediation slated for the entire structure, Again, this has all been reviewed and approved. As we look at the exterior. Come back to site. One of the key changes on the Trad Street elevation is the restoration of the 19th century. Here's the first floor existing. We have two windows facing Trad Street is on the right. And so we are kind of restoring the access to that that was removed during the 1965 renovation. And so we are going back and with a set of French doors and transoms in that place. As I said, the windows were added in 1965, which we have to thank Brittany with DBL finding the plan set, which is attached at the end of the submittal, kind of showing where those new windows were placed at that point in time. These windows, along with others that we are touching, will be removed, repaired, and reinstalled at other locations on the structure. And as a note, we did look at several options with the restoration of the piazza access, and then much deliberation and option presented with the four French sets of French doors, which there are two on the main level and two on the second floor, is what the easement holder PSC felt most comfortable with us moving forward with. The existing and so there's three 9x9 windows and then a very tall door, and all of those locations are kind of new locations from 1965. And we went going with the French door just to allow the access that was there previously to 1965. As we move to the garden elevation, we are adding central windows on the polygonal bay. We have studied many local polygonal bays similar to this addition's era and type, wood siding on masonry bays from the late 19th century, and found many precedents for the central window. And in our case, the central bay is the primary view looking out over the garden lot, something that we feel is appropriate and is much needed in those spaces. We are planning to remove the failing metal sheathing that is applied to the wood siding of that polygonal bay. This has already been removed and patched in many areas. And there is wood siding behind there that, there is wood siding that we will reveal from removal of the metal. Now, at the ground level, we are proposing to enclose the remaining porch area, which is almost always damp in that polygonal bay. And we will be reusing windows from other locations on the house to infill that area. The details will be treated to reveal the existing piers and the removal of existing HVAC soffits that are exposed. Just to be clear, on the ground level, the 9x9 windows that are on the central volume, we are keeping those to remain in place. No change there. Just making a note of that. And we go to the north elevation. So here is existing and proposed. This is where the bulk of our work is found. We're removing the 60s bath addition that was added in line with that central, the central rear stair volume. And its current ground level stucco is applied to a thin wood frame as failing. And we will be rebuilding it with a masonry bottom located about 2.5 feet back from the face of the stair volume, and revealing the true massing of the elegant volume that has been lost since the 60s. The windows in the bath will be kind of a step down from the others on the main body of the house to show its subordinate nature. The windows added on the main level of the polygonal volume are relocated from elsewhere from like the front. Well, lastly, we have a small iron canopy, copper and iron canopy at the rear ground level entry, and a much needed simple iron support under the cantilevered bay. So the staircase kind of comes out and cantilevers over the current drive. And it is, has quite the slope on it. And after some investigation and select demo, we found kind of some steel that was in there already and has fractured and broken some of the our structural members. So we are proposing just a simple iron support, not trying to make it look like it's something else. It's kind of really doing the support of that structure that we need to address. And yeah, and this is another point to be made to relocate the parking from the back area to the Logan Street side, which Glenn Gardner is here to be part of that.
Charleston, I am Glenn Gardner, landscape architect for the project. And I will just very quickly walk you through one particular site plan. And then if you all have any questions, we can address. Let's see. One of my favorite photos. We all fixate on these old photos that Brittany was able to find for us. And just a quick note, we put together this photo sheet simply because we acknowledge there are a ton of really great historic materials on the property. Those will not go in a dumpster. We will determine where they all belong, and those will get integrated into the new landscape. We have lots of different Old English brick, some brownstone, bluestone, all kinds of good stuff that we'll make use of. And we're almost back. So just quickly, the kind of two main views that we've thought of here have been the view of the front entry to the house, which is a little oddly pinched in my opinion. And then looking back at those old photos, like the 1920 photo, we were really inspired by how the perception of the garden and the property is different from those. And then secondly, the current driveway photo that a car can barely fit down. But if you go down the driveway off trad at the moment, it leads you to the back area between the carriage house and the main house where once you get there, this entire area is eaten up by attempting to do a 10-point turn in your car. And there is then no landscape for the owners. So what we're proposing is to terminate the driveway, have room that a smaller service vehicle could pull in, park, drop something off. But then we have a pedestrian walkway coming on the east side off Trad Street. That then allows us to use the garden area in the back as sort of owners' private living and use where the swimming pool goes. And the pool is centered on that stair hall tower that Ross explained was kind of re-revealed or kind of brought back to architectural importance. That keeps all of our living, if you will, back here out of view from the public. And HCF, as noted, has an easement, an open space easement on the garden lot at the corner of Logan and Trad. Our goal has been to preserve this garden lot as the public knows it. We have an amazing crepe myrtle, a really great camphor tree, and a big live oak. All of those are to remain. And our proposal is really just to reshape the lawn around those great trees, gain some privacy and buffering, and then implement a stone and brick terrace at grade that you can come down the stairs, come out of the house and use to live in. In my rendering, I'll note that we had originally proposed gaining access through the basement foundation of the house, but we are no longer asking to do that based on easement holder feedback. So that would be a plant bed. Then we are proposing to bring our parking off Logan Street in a relatively modest 10-foot 8-inch driveway opening. We've talked to traffic and transportation and engineering about that. And of course, we have to get BAR's approval to open up the non-historic iron and stucco coping wall that's here currently. And then we could pull into a primarily pervious parking area off the street. maintaining all of the open garden lot here on the corner, and then quietly parking off Logan Street, which then brings the owners into the back door and the mudroom of the house. So all of that feels relatively logical to us for daily living. And I would just sort of close by saying that we've tried to think through a respectful refresh of a property that's been owned by a local family forever and is now going to be owned and inhabited by another local family, hopefully for a very long time. Any questions?
I thought I saw in the application that you were replacing the fence, but going back.
We are considering, Bill, and we're conceptual, so I'm happy to talk about that. We are considering asking to go back with the wood version of the fence. That is kind of still on the table. We're talking about it with neighbors, talking about it with the owners. We all seem to love, or not seem to, I mean, I love the scale of this photo from the 1920s. So we have already drawn this exact detail by overlaying it. I just didn't want to show it to you all yet until we really know where we want to head. I would say it's possible we may come back and only ask to do a portion of it. We know that there was a wood fence here until at least the 70s that was not in great condition, but it wasn't this fence. This fence had gone away and then been rebuilt. Iron and stucco that is there currently is not done all that well. It's fine. I think when the former owners did it, it was a big project for them. But we're thinking about ways that we could possibly reuse some of that and not just start completely fresh. So I would say we would come back for final with full knowledge of what we want to do. Okay. So, but final comment on that is that we would not be asking for anything more than what the historic photo shows as far as height and scale.
Any other questions?
Getting back to just for some clarification on the windows where you're adding and subtracting. So the Trad Street side, there were once doors on the piazza?
Yes.
Okay.
So within the older drawings and through speaking with the family, the central bay, there was on both floors, there was a, rather large set of French doors and side lights. And yeah, this is the house next door, kind of showing something similar. So we have kind of discussions with PSC of how we wanted to move forward with that. We kind of went a couple different ways, and we kind of went back to what they felt most comfortable with is just kind of keeping with the existing windows openings that are now and just doing a French door and transom.
So the doors were in a different configuration, but it just makes more sense just to keep with the existing opening.
Yes, yeah, we did select demo and you can definitely see a lot of the newer framing underneath kind of in those zones, but.
Gotcha. Okay. And on the octagonal portion, did you find evidence that there were windows where you wanted to add those, or?
We
done any digging in the wall?
We've done digging on certain locations, but we haven't found any there.
Okay.
Not saying that we won't, but.
All right. And your support columns under the cantilever over the existing driveway, I assume you're not just talking about something like a simple lally column. You would do something different than that.
Yeah, you have a round iron with a little bit of detail, but not trying to be too showy. It's more to secure that cantilever bay.
And finally, you didn't really touch much onto the carriage house, but it looks like everything's going in the same openings.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and right now there's a large opening there with a steel column holding up, and we're kind of getting rid of that, keeping that opening, infilling brick with the brick that's already there on site, and And what are the carriage doors there? Just so, yeah, just using the existing opening.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all. Do you have anyone speaking?
Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. We've reviewed the application for 128 Tradd Street. We hold an easement on the open space on the property and have approved the proposed changes which conform to the easement. We defer to PSC as far as compliance with their easement.
Henry Interior Preservation Society of Charleston, as the easement holder on both the interior and exterior of this significant historic property, the PSC has met with the applicant and has reviewed the plans for the proposed exterior rehabilitation. As demonstrated by Ross and Glenn's thorough presentation, proposed modifications are supported by historical documentation and careful study of precedent and are concentrated to previously altered areas and the post-1888 polygonal bay addition. The PSC appreciates the owner's dedicated stewardship of this significant easement property, and we are pleased to offer our support for this project.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Rachel, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So some staff observations. We know that the additional windows clutter the elevations, and then the BAR principle, the size and frequency of windows is one of the most significant visual characteristics of the building. They should provide repetitive rhythm horizontally, but not be too repetitive vertically. We also noted accessory structure elevations may be labeled incorrectly. The proposed bathroom alteration is not visible from the public right-of-way, and the proposed accessory structure modifications on the pool side are not visible from the public right-of-way. Staff conditions for approval, the windows on trad elevation should remain as windows. Staff retract that condition after your explanation. If they were doors originally, we retract that. Fenestration pattern on the octagonal form should not be altered. On the proposed Logan Street elevation, the middle column of windows on the octagon should be eliminated. Ironwork fencing should be retained as proposed wood fence creates a fortress-like appearance. Per BAR hardscape policy, fences and walls should be appropriately scaled for their context so as to prevent a fortress-like appearance. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with staff and board conditions and preliminary final review by staff of permit document.
Thank you, Rachel. Did you all want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
Yeah, I think my only comment back would be about the fencing, because we have this document. And in my opinion, a 5.5 foot, really nicely detailed wood fence is not fortress. Like, I fully understand the principle. But in this case, where we have evidence, if we do wish to go that way at final, I think we should have the latitude because of the fact that we're able to duplicate it identically. Thank you.
I'll mention the fenestration at the polygonal bay. Just through our study of many of the other structures in the area with that type of bay, wood over masonry, they always had a central window there, and it was just quite odd, and maybe just further selective demo, but I think those windows really add a lot to it.
All right, public comment. The applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
As far as the fence goes, I like the idea of going back to the historic fence. I think the proportions are much nicer. What's there now it's not a very nice fence. So I would be in support of going back with the historic rendition of the fence. As far as on the Tradd Street side, I'm fine with the doors changing on the piazzas. I think that makes sense since those windows are not original. Let's see, filling in underneath the, what, we call it a polygon now or octagon? Filling in underneath that, I'm comfortable with that because you're more or less infilling in between the piers, and that would be completely reversible as long as the windows are pretty much spanning from pier to pier. So I don't really have an issue with that. The bathroom volume, I think those are all huge improvements. You now can read those original corners of the building again. I guess the portions that I have difficult with would be the addition of the windows in the polygon. If they weren't there before, I mean, I know of a couple of examples around town where that condition exists. One in particular that comes to my mind is the building that's owned by Ashley Hall School over at Smith and Warren, something like that. They have the blank wall of the polygon. So without any type of exploratory evidence, I'm not real comfortable about adding those. I think a lot of times, when we do things like this, we kind of chip away the history of a house. When you get a new owner, they want to do this, they want a window there. You get another owner, they want to do nothing else. So I'm always in a favor if it wasn't there before, don't introduce it. It's just sort of a preservation ethic of mine. On the rear, I guess that would be the north elevation. I'm comfortable with removing and replacing the one small undersized 6/1 window, but I'm not in favor of doing a pair of windows there. It kind of throws off the rhythm of that volume. I think it should stick to 1/1. I think, and then the carriage house, I'm fine with all of that. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm in agreement too. I could go either way on the Logan Street side of the octagon.
Yeah. I think
But I
it
hear what you're
looks
saying.
nice.
I understand.
think it looks
It
nice.
looks better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Historic evidence.
Yeah, it's hard for me to hang my hat on it if they.
I agree with all that. Plus, I think, just some minor point is be a lot of HVAC up there on that roof now.
Yeah.
I think that may have to be screened. But I'm in agreement with your comments on the windows.
Do we have some consensus on a motion? Or Daryl, did you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add.
Bill, this evening you seem to be the motion maker.
That'd be that way.
You might have to add that one.
I would say conceptual approval with,
Staff comment 2, if any of them.
yeah, with adoption of staff comment 2. I would like to add, and this would be a simple thing, vary the siding profile on the bathroom volume. That way it'll read as a later operations. So staff comment number 2, vary the siding profile on the bathroom volume and eliminate the paired windows on the north elevation. And how do you guys feel about the windows in the octagon? Sorry, not octagon.
In favor of the one window?
In favor of the one window.
On the north.
On the north, yes.
Is rear north?
Yes.
Yes. And
I'm not in favor of that.
and then no windows on the octagon.
Wasn't that all staff comment?
I think that's 2.
That's 2. Yeah, that's number 2. Yeah, sorry. So
Okay.
have you got that?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I'm gonna read it back.
Yeah, great.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff condition 2 and 2 board conditions. First, to vary the siding profile on the bathroom volume, and 2, eliminate the paired windows on the north elevation in favor of 1.
Right.
and preliminary and final review by staff. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Second.
Laura? Put the motion to a vote. Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Laura?
Yeah.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, agenda item 9, 11 Montague Street. Rachel, if you'll give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
11 Montague Street. It's in the Charleston Village neighborhood, Council District 8. It's a Category 3, circa 1818, in the Old and Historic District. They're requesting preliminary approval for alterations to the existing hyphen and kitchen house, as well as the third floor bathroom. So here's the context of the house on the site. And
Good evening, my name's Evan Gonzalez, with Public Regard. Pretty minor comments from last time that we incorporated. So comment number 1 was to lower the third floor bathroom addition roof to tuck under the eave of the main house. So that was done while not having to go completely flat roof, which we were happy about. The second one was to revise the third floor or the first floor hyphen transoms to simplify the Gothic pattern. This was a take on our previous was a take on a Georgian fanning pattern. But we simplified that just to a common grid. And then the third was to study the material transition between historic turn metal and our coated new metal roof. And I have a report from our roofing person that has no problems with that transition. That's record. That's it.
Any questions for the applicant?
Your roofing person?
Chris Cahill. Cahill.
Okay.
Yeah. Used to doing downtown roofs.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Hi again, Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. We reviewed the application for 11 Montague and we support the application. The proposed modifications conform to the requirements of the easement that HCF holds on the property. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking? Rachel, if you'll give us the staff comments and recommendations, please.
So staff just had an observation. The previous motion and conditions have been addressed, and staff recommendation is preliminary approval with final review by staff.
Thank you, Rachel. Did you want to respond to or clarify anything? No. All right, so we'll move into board discussion and a vote. I think they. Did you want to make a motion?
I will. I move that we, sorry, start over. Make a motion for preliminary approval as submitted with final review by staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for preliminary approval as submitted with final review by staff. Do I have a second to lower the motion?
Second.
Daryl, put the motion to a vote. Bill?
Yay in favor.
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Laura?
Yay in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Agenda item 10, 48 Poplar Street. Frankie, if you'll give us.
You're so close.
Did it. Rachel, you'll give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Yes, 48 Poplar Street. It's in the North Central neighborhood, Council District 4. It's a Category 4, Group 2 building, circa 1935, in the Historic Materials Demolition Purview District, and they're requesting approval for removal of a metal roofing system to install shingles. It's an appeal of staff decision. So here's the home on the site and the applicant presentation.
Hi, this is Miss Donlin. She's the homeowner. I am Rory Isaac. I'm the estimator. I work for Big Bear Roofing. We've done a lot of coatings downtown, over 100. We just finished one on Payne Street. We always try to maintain, any of the historical values with coatings. And the idea is you can just put another coat on, 15 years, put another coat on it, and kind of adds to the charm. However, with this, they do have some extensive kind of rafter and, some leaking, and it's been it's been attempted to repair in coatings and coatings and coatings. And it's just that they have more damage than just we would have to be able to tear some stuff off. Y'all's argument, I believe that the staff was that this was an inferior, that we were replacing with an inferior product. Our argument is that we are in fact going back with an IBHS, an institute, the Insurance Institute for Building, Home and Safety. It's the South Carolina Safe Home Program. It's a grant program designed to bring homes up to code. So in order to be able to perform these duties, we would need to remove all of the metal, install hurricane clips, install gable end bracing, and do a 4-on-center nailing pattern on the decking, which is the only way to do any of these things. Well, you can caulk on the seams of the inside of the attic, but there's just a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a lot of newly shingled roofs in the neighborhood. They have an accessory building on property that's shingled. I want to apologize for Ms. Donnelly that we are even here. I never even thought that this would be denied. We've always tried to stay within the recommendations of the bar. I would ask that you would allow us to shingle.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Do we have anyone speaking?
And Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. We've reviewed the application for 48 Poplar Street, and we oppose the request for removal of the metal roofing system to be replaced with shingles. This change is not consistent with the AR standards that require materials to be repaired rather than replaced. If repair is not possible, the replacement material should match the former material in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. We would rather the applicant replace the roof with a material consistent with the existing metal roof. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else. Rachel, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So it's just a staff observation because this is an appeal of staff denial. Staff denied the permit 2/21/25 as this change would be considered a demolition, not be approved by staff. Because it's a staff appeal, we have no recommendation.
Did you want to respond to or clarify anything before we move into board discussion and vote on it? Did you want to clarify
I'll
anything?
just clarify, we have an active leak, and we can't figure out where it's coming from. And so that is the reason we've owned the house for several years. We'd like to stay there long term. We love the neighborhood. We want to fix it the right way. Our accessory building has shingles. At least half of the other houses on our block have shingles. 2 of our neighbors just replaced, it was shingle to shingle, but with the exact same shingles we're looking to replace. So, it's not out of character for the block to have shingles. And, we really want to make sure that we're fixing the underlying issue of where water is coming in. And replace it the right way, but replacing with a fully new metal roof would be extremely cost prohibitive for us as homeowners.
Yeah, it's a significant difference, and really to get down to what we need to do to repair it, to fix this. It has been over and over and over attempted to be repaired, and you just can't see. If you're in the attic, there's extensive rot that needs to be replaced. And the only way to do it, and it's just a very, very expensive full replacement. But the idea of the safety of the roof is in much better shape than if we can put a coat on it, right? We can put, which is going to only be our other option. This will not be as a safer roof. I understand the preservation of the corner, but I mean, we just did a roof on West Poplar ourselves. I mean, it's the whole, there's shingles all around it. And so I would just ask for grace in this and just the sheer expense of what we're trying, of the attempt to repair this correctly. We can have to put another coat on it if that's the case. We're gonna be a guessing game. It's so hard for a company to warranty stuff. You know what I mean? We're gonna still be asking them for a lot of money. And then to say I can't warranty it, it's just a tough conversation to have, you know, and we've done a lot of things in the neighborhood to try to help out. And I just know how this is gonna go, you know, and so.
We have been awarded the Safe Home Grant as
Yeah,
well.
the grant's been awarded, it's a safer roof, you know, and there's a reason they have that program, they have been awarded, so.
Also with regards to replacing with a similar product, I can put a new metal roof, stainless steel metal roof on this building, but I can't replicate the metal from almost 90 years ago. But if that's your recommendation to re-roof it with a turn down metal system, I understand that, but it's a big added cost to the homeowner.
All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I agree with PSC and HCF and their comments that this roof needs, if it's in a condition where it needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced with a metal roof. I definitely understand the cost issue. I will mention that it is my understanding, having done tax credits, the State Historic Preservation Office offers 25% tax credit and a roof replacement like this would be applicable to that. So that could be a big help. I know it may not cover the total delta, but that could be a huge help. And would cover the rot repair, like all of those costs would be applicable to that tax credit process. So I agree that it needs to go back in metal. Shingles would not, I did go by there this morning and there are still several turn metal roofs that look like they're in much worse shape than this one, but I'm not an expert at that other than.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I agree. And I always feel the pain, you know, I've had to pay for these things myself over the years, and that's why it can be painful. It's the kind of the thing about owning a historic home. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you to look into the tax credit program. Unfortunately, BAR has gotten up to that area too late, and we've lost a lot of the metal roofs up there.
Which is why you see the asphalt roofs all
That's
around.
why you see so many of them around.
Yeah.
Such a character defining.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's such a strong character defining feature of the house. It's a lot of what makes the house what it is. Hopefully with maybe some tax credits, it can take some of the sting out of it.
My experience with the BAR is you can't go from metal to shingle, but you can go from shingle to metal, and then you can't go back once it's that way. So it's kind of not a gray area from my perspective.
Clear. That policy is clear.
Yeah. Let me make a motion. Denial of the submittal for the, what is it, for the BO?
It's an appeal of a staff denial, so I think we are upholding the staff decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to uphold the staff decision. Do I have a second to Daryl's motion? Right, open motion to a vote. Phil,
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Laura.
Yeah, in favor.
The chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion, adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Yay.
passes.
Opposed.
I don't know whether to say